The road to Bauchi. Chizara sat on the edge of her bed in Enugu, the weight of a single piece of paper heavier than lead in her hands. It was the admission letter from the University of Bauchi. For years, she had dreamed of studying architecture in the north, mesmerized by the intricate earth-walled structures and the vast, open skies. But now, the news headlines felt like thorns in her mind. Stories of blocked highways and shadows in the forest turned her dream into a source of trembling. That evening, Chizara found her father, Obinna, sitting on the veranda. The scent of rain-dampened earth filled the air. "Papa," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the crickets, "I am afraid. The road to Bauchi is long, and the stories. They say the bush is no longer safe." Obinna looked at his daughter, his eyes reflecting the flickering light of a nearby lantern. He didn't dismiss her fear. He held it with her. "Fear is a companion, Chizara, but it must never be the driver," Obinna said softly. He told her that courage was not the absence of shadows, but the decision to carry a light through them. He reminded her of their ancestors who traveled through uncharted forests to build the very ground they stood upon. Chizara listened, wanting to believe him, but the images of the dusty, dangerous roads still flickered in her mind like a broken film. The next morning, Chizara joined her mother, Neka, in the kitchen. The rhythmic thumping of a mortar and pestle echoed Chizara's heartbeat. "Nay, how do you find peace when the world feels so broken?" Chizara asked as they prepared the morning meal. Neka paused, wiping her brow with the edge of her wrapper. She looked at Chizara with a gaze that had weathered many seasons of uncertainty. "We seek wisdom from those who have walked before us," Neka said. She told Chizara of the community of travelers, the traders who moved goods from the south to the north every week. "They do not walk alone, and neither will you. We will speak to the elders at the motor park, and we will find the drivers who know the rhythm of the road. Wisdom is the shield that fear cannot pierce." Later that day, Obinna took Chizara to see Mazi, a veteran driver who had spent 30 years traversing the route to Bauchi. Mazi's hands were calloused, and his face was mapped with lines of experience. He didn't tell her the road was easy. He told her how to be prepared. He spoke of the checkpoints, the safe times to travel, and the way the community looked out for one another across the miles. Chizara began to pack. Each item she placed in her suitcase felt like a prayer. She packed her drawing pencils, her favorite head wraps, and a small pouch of kola nuts her father had given her for luck. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was being wrapped in layers of preparation and the collective strength of her family's blessings. She was no longer just a girl with a dream. She was a woman with a plan. On the morning of her departure, Neka tied a new scarf around Chizara's head. "This is to remind you that you carry our home with you," she said. They stood in the quiet of the dawn, the world still gray and soft. Neka whispered a prayer for protection, her voice steady and fierce. Chizara felt the strength of her mother's hands, a groundedness that started to settle the shaking in her own. At the bus station, the air was thick with the smell of diesel and the shouting of conductors. Obinna loaded Chizara's trunk onto the roof of the bus. He turned to her and handed her a small, carved wooden eagle. "Fly high, my daughter. The sky in Bauchi is waiting for your designs." Chizara hugged him tight, realizing that her courage wasn't about being unafraid, but about moving forward even when her hands trembled. As the bus rolled out of the station, heading north, Chizara watched the familiar hills of Enugu fade into the distance. She looked at the road ahead, stretching toward the horizon. The journey would be long, and the challenges were real, but she was armed with the wisdom of her community and the fire of her own ambition. She opened her sketchbook and drew the first line of a new horizon. Bauchi was calling.